It was my first year of university. I had just finished unpacking all of my stuff into my room, and my family had just left. Later on that same day, my roommate finally arrived, and right from the get-go, I knew this kid was the most socially inept person I'd ever met. I introduced myself as Dan, staking out my arm for a handshake. He paused, looked down at my arm as if he didn't understand at first, then laughed and went, "Oh," and gave me an almost dead fish handshake. I had to ask him for his name since he didn't even tell me when we shook hands. He was Dale. I tried to make small talk, but he just answered my questions with yes or no's, occasionally awkwardly laughing or smiling. Within minutes, we were both just sitting on our beds on our laptops, not talking to each other. I was upset and planned on requesting to be placed with a different roommate. Anyone would be better than Dale, I thought. Dale was just a really awkward kid. But I soon learned he was much more than just that. I met some of the other kids on my floor and they seemed cool, so that was good. I came back to my dorm after looking around campus the first night to find Dale still in the same position he was in. When I left, I said, "What's up, Dale?" And he didn't answer. Not to my surprise. It was 9:30. I didn't have anything to do, so I turned out the lamp on my side of the room and went to bed. I didn't actually fall asleep anytime soon, though. Dale was on his laptop until 3:00 in the morning when he finally closed his laptop. I fell asleep pretty quickly, but I woke up within the hour. The blinds to our room had been opened, and the moonlight now creeping into the room made everything visible, including Dale sitting on the side of his bed, looking at me. I sat up, rubbed my eyes, and said, "Dale, what the hell are you doing?" He whispered back, "Sorry," and laid down. The next morning, I woke up to find Dale had already gotten up. I felt like it was the first time he left the room. It was a Saturday, the first Saturday of the year, meaning orientation, and all the campus festivities. During the orientation, as my group was walking by the school gardens, I heard a couple of students ahead of me saying, "What is that kid doing in there?" I saw who they were talking about. It was Dale, literally sitting in the dirt behind a patch of bushes, rubbing the bark of a tree with his hand. The orientation leader didn't notice. Otherwise, I'm sure she would have said something. I just walked by, not saying anything, eventually telling the two kids I overheard that he was my roommate as a way to start a conversation and maybe make some friends. They apologized for me. None of us really knew if it was appropriate to laugh or not, but we did. I made friends with those two kids and we made plans to get together that night. I also learned when I got back to my dorm that the school found another roommate for me. Things seemed to be turning around quickly for the better. I left the room that night to go meet up with the two kids I met, and when I got back, Dale was sitting on the desk chair facing the door. I said, "Oh, hey, what's up?" He said nothing very matter-of-factly. I sat down on my bed and opened my laptop and realized I forgot to lock it. I also realized that all of my emails had been opened. I was pretty sure I didn't even read, and a bunch of folders of mine had been opened. They all must have snooped through my laptop. When I asked him if he did, he responded, "No." Very loudly. Half a second after I even finished my question, I could read him like a book. This creepy kid was literally going through my computer when I was out. I knew he did it, but I didn't pursue it. I was ready to go to bed, so as I went into my bed to look for my pajamas, I felt like my clothing had all been moved around as well. I knew I'd be out of there forever by tomorrow, so I didn't say anything. I woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of a zipper. I sat up and saw Dale on the ground going through my bag. I turned the lamp on this time, confronting him about it. He played dumb, saying, "I think you have my toothbrush by mistake." It was the closest thing to wits that he'd shown up until that point. Still, I knew he was lying and I knew something was wrong with him, so I couldn't get physical with him. The next day, I met my new roommate in the same building and everything went well. Sunday night, after having a decent conversation with my roommate, who is no social butterfly, but was miles better than Dale. We both turned off our lights and went to bed for the third night in a row. I woke up at some offer of the night to a strange noise. It was a weird clicking noise. It wasn't consistent, but I'd hear it at least twice every 30 seconds. I got up, hoping to find something innocent, like a heavy bag putting pressure on a weak floorboard, or even a mouse. But as I scoped out the room, I realized the sound was actually coming from the other side of the door. The night light in the common area was always on. So when I looked through the peephole, I was able to see the scalp of the person standing on the other side of our door. They were looking down, so I couldn't see their face. But now that I was paying attention, I realized the tiny clicking noises were actually coming from the doorknob. I was sure the person was trying to unlock the door. I dialed the number for the campus police department and they showed up in under 5 minutes to the common room. And only then did I feel it was safe to open the door. I found the officers to have Dale in cuffs. I had a feeling it was him. I told them everything, that he was my former roommate who was going through my stuff. So I switched dorms only to find him trying to break into my new dorm. They took him away. I don't know what happened to him after that, but I never saw him again. He either got suspended for the semester or expelled. I got through the rest of my years at university like anybody else. However, the nightmarish experience I had with Dale still pops up in my head every now and then. When I was about 22 years old, I attended a university over 2,000 miles away from my home. I was ready to start a new chapter of my life by studying culinary in college, as I wanted to be a chef as a career. I didn't have the money with me at the time to pay for my college, so I had to get a student loan and pay back the money. That meant that I had to get a job while I was in college. All of the jobs that I tried looking for either rejected my application or weren't hiring. My university did have jobs on campus, but from what I heard was that you don't get paid much. However, it didn't really seem like I had a choice. So I decided to work on campus. I, for some reason, chose to be a library assistant. Basically, I would scan books and put them where they belong. It was an easy task, but a long one. Anyway, one day the library was empty as it was getting ready to close. I was finishing up putting a few books away on the shelves when I heard the library doors open and then close. I just figured that it was a student coming to return a book or something. I turned around to see not a student, but some guy. He didn't even look like a student. He looked homeless. I told him that we were closed and to come back tomorrow, but he didn't respond to what I told him. He just stood there looking at me. I can now see that he was high on something. This man wasn't right, and so I asked if he needed help. He finally then responded saying no in a raspy voice. I knew there was something wrong with him, and so I called the security. But before I was able to put the phone to my ear, he grabbed me with one of his arms and used his other arm to take out something from his pocket. I started to freak out and started trying to break free, but his arm was holding onto my arm really, really tight. He then gave me the creepiest smile I've ever seen while still holding the knife up. I started screaming, and thank God there was security nearby. They stormed into the library and pushed the man to the ground and called the police. When the police arrived, I was questioned and they took the man off to some mental institution. It's been 3 years since that happened, and I just hope he's getting the help he needs. But this was the scariest experience I've ever had. I'm a 20-year-old female, and I was a freshman in college at the time when the story took place. It was near the end of the semester, which meant that we had finals coming up in a couple of weeks. I wasn't exactly in the position to fail finals, so I knew I had to do well in order to pass. That meant studying, eating good foods, and getting a good night's rest. Now here's where the incident began. It was about a week before finals, and I was doing my usual routine of going to bed early. My roommate was out at a frat party, so I had the room to myself. Anyway, I was about to shut my eyes and go to sleep when I heard my phone go off. I sighed and sat up and looked at my phone to see that I got a text message from a random number. I figured that it was either my roommate or someone had the wrong number. I opened the text message. It read, "Hello, Jane." I texted back saying, "Who is this?" They responded back in less than a minute, telling me that they could see me through my window. Now, my dorm does have a window, and it faces the outside with some trees. I assumed that the person texting me was my roommate or someone from my family, pulling a prank on me. For whatever reason, I looked out the window and I could see someone standing in the grass looking at me. I couldn't see his face as he was wearing a black hoodie, and it was dark outside. I ducked down below my window and closed the blinds. I didn't know who that was, and I blocked the number. Around 10 minutes later, I got into bed and tried to fall asleep, trying not to think about what had just happened. I fell asleep for about a good hour before I woke up to hear banging coming from somewhere in the room. I sat up and turned on the light to see nothing. I then heard the banging again, but I realized that it was coming from the door. Me, thinking it was my roommate, walked over to the door to let her in. I put my hand on the door handle and then stopped. I then realized that what if it wasn't my roommate? I looked through the people expecting to see my roommate, but I instead saw a man with a jacket trying to unlock my door. I started to panic and didn't know what to do. Thankfully, I remember that had pepper spray with me, so I got it out of my bag and stood by the door just waiting for the man to pick the lock and come in. About 30 seconds later, the door opened and I sprayed the pepper spray in his face. The man screamed in pain as the pepper spray was burning. He dropped to the floor, and I took that chance to run out of my dorm and speak with security. They took him away, and I don't really know what they did with him. The thing that scares me the most was how he got my number. That part really creeps me out to this day.